Hello gorgeous readers, I'm so happy that you are here. Today we are doing a review of Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the 5th book in the Hunger Games series and I was so excited to dive back into this world. So without further ado, let's just crack straight on. If you didn't already know, Sunrise on the Reaping is the 5th book in the Hunger Games series, so it is set after The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes but before the original trilogy, and it is Haymitch's story. So before we dive into the review, I just wanted to give you like a brief summary in my own words of what this book is about for anyone that hasn't read it yet. Just for reference, this review will contain both non-spoiler and spoiler thoughts. So I will do my non-spoiler thoughts first, and then when the spoiler thoughts are coming up, I will let you know so that if you haven't read it yet, you can just click off. I won't be offended. So this book, as I mentioned, is Haymitch's story, and it follows the 50th Hunger Games. So that is one of the quarter quells. Katniss and Peeta take part in the 74th and the 75th Hunger Games, if that gives you a bit of an idea of when this is set. Essentially, as it's the 50th Hunger Games and it's a quarter quell, they always do something special for the quarter quells, and this year they decided to take 2 boys and 2 girls from each district, so double the amount of tributes. Haymitch is from District 12, and as we know, he is the only victor other than Lucy from The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes, and that's not a spoiler because we know that he's the victor from the original trilogy, but essentially it follows his journey of life before the reaping, during the reaping, then kind of the training process, being selected, and then in the actual games and what happens after. Now we get to see a lot of familiar faces back in this book, which was really nice as it can be, obviously, given the plot of the book. We really get to see a lot of things come together and what made Haymitch into the way that he is in the original trilogy as we see him. So let's start with my non-spoiler thoughts for this book. Now I rated this book 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed it, as much as you can with all the heartbreak and sadness that happens in this book. If you are not expecting that, I am sorry to say that this book will break your heart. It is sad. Obviously, you know, the theme of the book is essentially Haymitch winning the Hunger Games, and of course there's only one winner. So there's a lot of sadness in this book, a lot more than I was expecting actually, because obviously we get to meet Haymitch before the games as well. So yeah, just be prepared. This book is not like happy. There's nothing happy about this book, but it was really nice to see Haymitch's story and kind of, you know, all of the events that led up to the Hunger Games book 1. So I thought this book did a lot of justice for Haymitch and made us really understand, you know, why he is the way he is. So just be prepared for no real happy ending to this book. Obviously that's not what this book is about. You do get kind of a final, you know, at peace feeling, and you just get a lot of explanations and a lot of background on the characters. The characters, the descriptions, the world building are all amazing, of course. There were so many things that made me gasp out loud. Like, as much as you think that you can kind of predict what's going to happen, Suzanne Collins manages to keep you completely on your toes and catch you off guard. We do meet a lot of the characters from the original Hunger Games trilogy, which I personally absolutely loved. I won't mention any names until the spoiler section, but just know that we do get a few familiar favourites, especially if you like book 2. There's a teaser for you. I felt for Haymitch so much through this entire book. He literally could not catch a break. Honestly, if you didn't already hate President Snow, which I'm sure that we all do, you will hate him even more after finishing this book. It's literally no wonder that he is the way he is in the original trilogy, especially at the start with the drinking and all that kind of stuff. He honestly goes through so much trauma and so much heartbreak that you completely understand kind of his personality and why he is the way he is, but you also really understand kind of the events that led up to what happens at the end of film 2. I'm going to swap between books and films because I've watched the films most recently, so that's what I remember the most. And then obviously the events that take place in the final book. You really understand the backstory of how Haymitch kind of came to be on that side. So if you love the Hunger Games universe like me and you really wanted to learn more about Haymitch and his backstory and his games, then I really do recommend reading this book. It was super easy to read. The pace flowed really well. The only parts I skimmed over were at the very end. There was like some songs that I just skimmed over. You'll get it if you read it. That was just my personal preference, but otherwise I wanted to take in every detail that was written in this book. So let's move on to my spoiler thoughts, because I don't know how I can discuss this book at length without completely giving spoilers away. So here's your warning. I will completely spoil this book for you if you have not read it. So I do advise that you click off now if you haven't. Okay, I'll give you 5 seconds of spoiler warning, but just know the book is about to be spoiled hard. So do with that what you will. Okay, I'm just going to start with the most shocking part of this book for me. Like, I literally gasped out loud at the gumdrop scene. Like, I gasped out loud. Like, I read the words. I kind of was a bit confused as to what was happening. I was like, what do you mean the gumdrops are in her room? I didn't really click until I kind of saw the words like blood red or something like that. And then I gasped out loud. And I was like, oh no. I obviously knew that she was going to die. Like, there's no Lenore in the original trilogy. You know, she's not mentioned, or she might be mentioned in the books again. I can't quite remember. But, you know, she's not alive and well. Like, you know, I knew that she was going to die, but I wasn't quite sure how it would fit in, obviously, after his mum and Sid. I don't know, some part of me was holding out hope. Like, when they had their reunion, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe it's like okay, maybe, I don't know, she just dies, like, you know, when she's a bit older, like, of natural causes. I don't know why I thought that would happen. Obviously that was never gonna happen. So yeah, that was the most like shocking part of the book for me, as in something that I did not expect to happen. And then of course his mum and Sid, that was honestly so heartbreaking. I can't even comprehend like how, you know, horrible that was. Snow is honestly a piece of crap, like, but the worst word for that, for killing them all. I literally couldn't hate him anymore. Like, as if his mum and brother wasn't enough, which was already horrific, then to kill Lenore as well. And I was kind of thinking, I wondered why he did that, because obviously when you kill someone that everyone loves, sorry, when you kill everyone that someone loves, then, like Joanna says in the second film, that there's nothing left, there's nothing that anyone could do to her, so there's no reason for her not to be on the side of the resistance. So it was a bit like, you know, in theory, if you've killed everyone that he loves and cares about, what's to stop him, what's to keep him in line? But then obviously we know that it's because she makes him promise for there not to be another sunrise on the reaping. And obviously it takes 25 years, but eventually he does it and he fulfills his promise, and there's that kind of feeling of peace like once he's done that. But I think that the reason that Snow did kill her was because she was obviously Covey and she was quite outspoken, and I think he knew that she would be kind of a catalyst to him continuing to push like the capital and rise up against Snow. So I think that's why he did that, on top of obviously his mum and his brother, which was just heartbreaking. So let's get into the characters that were introduced in this book from the original trilogy. I was so excited when I saw Wyrus and Mags and Beatty's names come up, although as if you couldn't feel any worse for Beatty. Like, that was a lot. But the introduction of those characters back and kind of figuring out how they'd all met, how they all knew each other, you know, like in the second film when he's talking about Wyrus and Beatty and he's saying that they're lovely people. Obviously you've got no context for that, just that maybe, you know, he's obviously seen them, you know, during the multiple years of him being a victor and a mentor, but you realise that actually no, they helped him out when he was the one in the Hunger Games, and then that relationship has continued from there. So that was really, really nice. I really loved seeing them kind of be mentors and be a part of Haymitch's story. I also loved that we met Effie, like a young Effie, because it really explains their relationship and why they're kind of like so close, given that obviously Effie's from the capital and Haymitch is from District 12. I loved meeting that. I was a little bit confused because I was kind of like, all these characters, I was trying to figure out the timelines. I was a bit like, well, it's like 25 years later that obviously this all happens. So I was trying to work that out. Obviously, I guess that they are like, you know, older, obviously, in the second film. So I was a bit confused, but then I did manage to work it out. Obviously Effie's really young in this when she meets and then kind of grows up with Haymitch, and then of course Mags and Wyrus and Beatty, you know, they're all older in the second film. So I did work out the timeline, but I was confused at first because I was thinking like, I don't understand how they all fit in the same timeline given that this is like 25 years prior. But it does make sense. So I absolutely loved the introduction of Effie, and I think it was really nice to see like more of Effie, because I think obviously you see her, you know, a lot in the films, and you know, her journey and progression. But it was really nice to see her like at the start and show them the kindness that no one else was really showing them. Also thought it was really interesting that Plutarch was in this book. I was a bit thrown off at first because I was like, okay, like obviously we know what happens. We know that he's the game maker for the 75th Hunger Games. So what I thought that was interesting, but what I thought was more interesting was obviously that he's been working like against the Capitol in his own way for so long. Like it started from like before Haymitch, and obviously he spent years, like 25 plus, working up to the point of, you know, the end of the second film where they, you know, really rise up against the Capitol. Really interesting to see, and you understand his decisions in the second film a bit more, so you get, again, you get just a lot more backstory on these characters from the original trilogy. I honestly wish that this was like some kind of different storyline. Like I wish that we could take these characters and put them in a different plot line so that we could get like the found family of Haymitch and the other tributes from District 12. So Maisley, Wyatt and Luella. Obviously this book literally, it just breaks your heart. Every single chapter, it just breaks your heart with something new. Obviously there was Luella first, and then there was the, you know, the body double for Luella, and then obviously like Maisley and Wyatt, like, you know, they all die, which is just so sad, especially considering that you see their relationship like during the training and during the you know, the obviously the experience pre the games, but also in the games as well, like, you know, the Luella double and how Haymitch looks after her, and then Maisley as well, until obviously their deaths. It was just so, like, it was so nice. Like I so wish that it could have just been something else, like a different book, a different plot, so that you could kind of get that and they all kind of got the happy endings and had that found family. But of course that is not what this book was. So again, you know, when you kind of see their relationships and you see kind of like the love with each other, you know, even though they maybe don't realize it at the time, you again understand Haymitch a lot more, because obviously he lost, you know, he literally lost everyone. Like he lost everyone that he loved. And yeah, it was really nice that there was the good moments of between them, obviously before they entered the actual games. And, you know, obviously the Luella, you know, she died prior to the games, but they're like moments before that, you know, where they're kind of like, you know, together to the end, you know, that was just so lovely. And for then, you know, that to happen, it just, honestly, it rips your heart out. It really does rip your heart out, but you know, we knew that going in.
Editing Emily here, guys. I just realised that I didn't even mention one of the most shocking points of the book, which was the fact that Haymitch's name wasn't even originally picked. It was someone else, and he was only in the games because he tried to protect Lenore. So as if the poor man's luck wasn't any worse, he literally wasn't even supposed to be in the Hunger Games. So yeah, I just wanted you guys to know that that was not lost on me.
Honestly, I could go on about everything that I loved about this book, but I'm going to stop there. Otherwise, this video is going to be very long, and I'm end up just going to like honestly, I could speak for ages. So I'm just going to stop there. I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, but I would love to hear your thoughts if you have read the book in the comments so that we can keep the discussion going, because I love discussing books with people, obviously. I want to hear your thoughts, and I want to be able to chat about these kind of things. If there's anything that I missed talking about in this review, obviously there's so much more that happens in the book, and there's so many more characters that, you know, we haven't had the chance to dive really deep into. So yeah, please leave a comment if you've read the book and let me know your thoughts. I'm really excited for the film version of this book. Obviously we know that that's happening, and I'm not sure if there's going to be any more books in the series, but if there were to be any more books in the series, I personally would really like to see Finnick's story. Obviously, again, we know how they end, like we know how a lot of this ends, but I would really like to see Finnick's story, and I also think that maybe I'd like to see like the first Hunger Games or the events prior to the Hunger Games, so like the uprising that led to the creation of the Hunger Games, kind of like that storyline. I think there could be like, you know, some good key characters who kind of led that. Obviously again, we know that they don't win, but you know, kind of the reasoning behind that and what happened, and you know, how the districts were prior to the uprising as well. I just think that would be really like interesting to read about as well. Again, don't know if there is going to be any more books, but if there are, then I think there is so much more world that can be talked about, so I definitely would be reading those. What about you? What would you like to see if there was any more books in the series? Anyway, that's all from me today. Thank you so much for spending time with me. The best part of this video was that you were here with me, so thanks so much for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.